Hello everyone. Welcome to Introducing Self-Service Alerting Part 1. This is part of a talk series around SQL Server Business Intelligence. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be introducing a new feature that is coming in SQL Server 2012, which is self-service alerting. My name is Łukasz Pawłowski. I'm a program manager on the reporting services team, and it's been a great honor for me to spend the last 2 years or so working towards delivering this new capability in SQL Server 2012. In today's session, we have sort of 3 parts, right? So this is going to be the very first part, and it's going to be the foundational part of the series. So we're going to introduce self-service alerting. We're going to put it in context of the broader Microsoft vision and the SQL Server story for SQL Server 2012, and then talk through that and show a demo to show you exactly what self-service alerting is. So if you've chosen the right talk, we're going to go show you what the product looks like. But first, let's go and introduce it a little bit. Spend a little bit of time giving you some background information, and then we'll talk about benefits at the end and wrap up. Great. So let's start off with Microsoft Business Intelligence. Now, when we look at Microsoft Business Intelligence, we really look at it as a part of an overall platform. Now, that platform is built on the ability to pull data in from any kind of data source, whether that's SQL Server, Oracle, SAP, line of business applications like Microsoft Dynamics, your own custom line of business applications, and also sources of data from the web, so for example, OData feeds. We're able to pull all of those into a common set of middleware services that allow us to provide additional value on top of that data, whether that's analysis services, reporting services, integration services, or master data services. When you're using our stack, you're really using the most widely deployed EIM and BI platform that's available today. Now, in this talk, we're going to be focused mostly on the reporting services part of this overall story. And lastly, when we talk about this, we really also want to talk about how individual users and information workers within your organizations use data. And it's really important to say that as part of our business intelligence story, we're really thinking about how users use their data and where they do that. And what we find is that's SharePoint. So really, when we talk about our overall BI business intelligence story, it's also about how taking the data from the actual underlying data source and putting it all the way out to your information workers. So we're going to be showing you how we integrate reporting services with SharePoint as part of this presentation. And of course, this is the most widely deployed set of productivity collaboration tools. We really think that the data that your information workers should be using, your business decision makers should be using, is in the tools that they're most familiar with already. And of course, that's built on top of Office, SharePoint 2010, and SQL Server. So now, when we look at SQL Server 2012, we really have 3 major investment areas. The first one is around mission-critical platform. This is the ability to, have large deployments, being able to move those and have those in high availability situations. So we have introduced some new technology in this release around always on, and that's a very important part of the platform. The second piece is around developer and IT productivity. We've spent a lot of time investing in making sure that the development tools around the Microsoft Business Intelligence and also data platform technologies integrate very well with Visual Studio and provide the kind of enterprise-grade developer experiences, and also the experiences that you know and love. Now, in this presentation, we're going to focus on the last item here, which is pervasive insight. And within this, we have a number of items, right? We have breakthrough performance with analytics at scale. This is our new investment in Power Pivot, and the ability to host Power Pivot-based models inside analysis services as tabular models. Being able to reach everyone with BI. So this is a transformational integration with SharePoint and making sure that models created within Excel workbooks are able to be published to SharePoint. And lastly, the ability to deliver consistent, credible data to the right users. And that's really where we're going to focus on self-service alerting. So within reporting services, we had sort of 3 things that we tried to accomplish within this release. So first was to empower users, right? So what we really wanted to do is we wanted to take the ability for users to interact with data to a whole new level with stunning visualizations, extremely easy to create highly interactive experiences around the data that you have. And this is data that you've created a model in Power Pivot, and now we have this new tool called Power View that enables an information worker to really make stunning visualizations on their data. The second piece is around increasing efficiency. So we also redid our SharePoint integration. So now we have a single shared service that's built into the overall SharePoint infrastructure. And I'm going to spend just a little sliver of time in this presentation talking about that, only as much as I need to describe the last piece, which is around proactive intelligence, and that's where we're going to spend most of our time today, around end-user alerting. So what we really wanted to do here is we wanted to provide the way for information workers to be able to get data alerts on their data when it's important to them. Now, the last thing to really to note here is that as we've talked about the data platform, the goals of SQL Server 2012, and with the contribution that reporting and alerting are providing into that overall mix, we also need to remember that Microsoft Business Intelligence is a solution that enables both information workers to get their data when they want them, but also allows IT pros and corporate scenarios so that people can manage that data, so the data doesn't get out of control within your organization. We call that self-service managed business intelligence, and so everything that we've done has pulled into that overall vision. So now let's take a look at self-service alerting and why we decided to invest in this area. And I think this is very important from when you start asking yourself, who in my organization would benefit most from self-service alerting? So I think, when we started a few years ago, we really looked at all of the contributions we could possibly do within reporting services. And we saw several trends. So the first is that information workers increasingly need to be very proactive in response to data changes. They need to be able to know that those data changes have happened. They need to be able to quickly and even be ahead of the curve in terms of making sure that their projects and the data for their projects and the data in their industries is trending the right way. The second trend is around the amount of data that information workers have to deal with. We find that the data volumes are increasing tremendously. When I look at my inbox on a daily basis, the number of emails that I receive today is significantly larger than I received several years ago. So I'm on the order of receiving 300 emails a day, whereas a few years ago I might have received 100. And that makes it very difficult for me to stay on top of all of the data. So information workers really need that sort of safety net to say that, hey, this thing's not going to slip through. I'm going to be able to react to the important data, and I'm able to sift through the data that's coming at me much more effectively. And the last thing that information workers need is the ability to tailor their environment to their specific job, to drive the efficiency and the productivity that they have throughout their day. What we find is that a lot of alerting solutions within the enterprise send alerts to people irrespective of what their actual role is, or irrespective of the actual data they themselves think that they need, and that ends up being kind of spam for them, and they have to just wade through that. It's more stuff to wade through. So information workers really needed a way to monitor data that's specific to their job, and so that of course provided us an opportunity. So within the self-service alerting, what we really set out to do is to allow information workers to be very proactive and responsive around data changes. So we allowed people to sift out the information that's most important to them by creating data alerts so that they don't have to go view that report, or they don't have to have just a generic subscription that sends them a standard all of the data all of the time. They can just create the alert that most suits their needs, and then they're alerted whenever that happens through email. And the last one is the very flexible and intuitive rules that allow information workers to just get on with their job. And this is very important, right? There are some tools that allow you to create very interesting alerts, but they're not really tailored to the way that information workers work. Right? Information workers typically see something in a report, they know it's the right thing or they know it's the wrong thing, and they want to just very quickly express that as an alert. So we allow people to go through with that and create that as part of our solution. So now, we've talked a little bit about the overall Microsoft position. We talked about the product that we have in market and the kind of the background for the product. Now let's go ahead and take a look at a demonstration of self-service alerting. What I wanted to do in this part is I wanted to show you how alerts are designed, how alerts are managed, and then how alerts are received. And so we'll come back to this in a second. Okay, so let's go take a look. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come into my website. Now in this case I have SharePoint 2010. First thing that you should know about self-service alerting and data alerts is that we only support them in SQL Server 2012 when you're integrated with SharePoint 2010. So now this is just a standard team site that I've created. It's what you get out of the box when you just install SharePoint. And I've published an operational report. This is a RDL report, just like any other report you would have created. The great thing about self-service alerting is that it works out of the box with all of the operational reports you've already invested in. So the moment you upgrade, you're able to go ahead and start using this. Now this is a typical kind of project tracking report. It shows team health, and what you can see here is you can see that George has some overdue tasks. Now if I'm a manager of this project, I'm able to go and create an alert so that if anyone else or if George again has overdue work, I'm able to get an alert. And that way, I'm very much in tune with where my team is and how we're tracking towards our goals. So let's go see how we create that. If I come into the Actions menu in the top left-hand corner, I expand that, you will see this new option for New Data Alert. When I click on this option, this will launch the Alert Designer. Now let's just go through very quickly and show you what's going on here. So first off, I'm going to be able to see all of the data from the report, and I can see that I have due dates and completed dates. Now let's go ahead and create my first alert. So my first alert, and I'm just going to go through this pretty quickly. So I want to know when things are overdue, right? So I want to say completed date is after. I'm going to do a quick selection here, and I'm going to say is after the due date. And I'm going to say it for every day. Now, my particular SharePoint deployment on my laptop here doesn't have a profile service, but if it did, it would already know who I am. And I'd say my first data alert. And here I provide a little description. So let's go ahead and save that out. Fantastic. What you just saw is in the span of about a minute, if not less, I'm able to create an alert that's going to make me more proactive and more responsive to the data changes that affect my ability to contribute in my organization. Now, I know that I went through that extremely quickly. I did that to illustrate a point. Data alerts are a productivity tool for information workers. So we want it to be extremely simple and fast to create the alerts. Now let's go back through again and let me actually explain what's happening in all of these pieces. So first off, I've just gone through and I've just went through the Actions menu, hit the New Data Alert option, and I've launched the Alert Designer again. The Alert Designer is a Silverlight experience. So when you want your users to use Silverlight, you will go and you will, or use Alert Designer, you will have to install Silverlight 5 onto the client desktops. Great. Now once you're in the tool, we show you the data that's in the report. So what you'll see over here on the left-hand side is you'll see a list of data that's available in the report. This report contains one data region. It's a table. And so it only has one data feed. If I had more data regions, several tables, maybe some charts, and so on and so forth, I would see a list of those right here in this drop-down. The second thing you see is a data preview. Now, this data preview returns some of the rows of the data from the report, and it helps the information worker understand what data they have to play with, right? So, we can scroll over here and we can see all of the different fields that are available. So in this particular case, when I created the example, I said completed date is after the due date, right? So I could just go ahead and see that data. Of course, I can see where at the bottom here on the left-hand side, we can see where where it's going to be saved to. I have an alert name, which is fairly straightforward. So demo second try. And now let's go take a look at the alert conditions that we can create. So now these here, so this is the data from the report. This data, it's very important to understand. This is exactly the same data that the information worker sees when they view the report. Okay? So if I cancel out here and I expand right here on George, you'll see the exact same data that George is seeing here, right, is also available in the Alert Designer. Now, that's important because that allows information workers to deal with the data the way they interact with it. And that's an important design principle of alerting. Okay? So now when we talk about alert rules, we first show you all of the fields within your data region. And we can do different kinds of alerts on this, right? So if I have a person, I can say some basic things about it. So any kind of string, I can go ahead and say is not contains. I get the ability to select from a list, right? So I get to say is George. Makes it kind of interesting and makes it easy for an information worker to make alerts, right? So now this is the kind of direct comparison or a comparison against a static value, right? So that gives you that. We can also create a limited amount of or. This is really an in-list scenario. So I can say is George or Adam, so on and so forth. I can add multiple rules, so then I can go and I can create the completed date is before, is after. If we have a date, we also provide you a nice little calendar control for selecting that. But what I can do is I can say is after. I want to show you this other drop down over here, which is the switch between value entry mode and field selection mode. When I switch it over, I'm now able to compare one field against another field. And that allows my alert rules to be data-driven, which is very interesting. So now, in this particular alert, I can say, whether if George or Adam has something which is completed date is after the due date, then I'll get an alert. Okay. Now let's take a look a little bit about scheduling. Scheduling is fairly straightforward. We support a daily, weekly, hourly, or minute. And that's very intentional because we think that most alerts will be on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, because that's more or less the cadence that most information workers use. So if I specify weekly, I can go ahead and I can say which day of the week, so maybe I want to go on Tuesday. If I expand advanced settings, we have some very interesting options. So first off, we have the ability to say start an alert on a particular time and also stop it on a particular day. These are important options, especially when you're trying to run a project within an organization, because typically there are due dates and typically projects end after a certain period of time. So you can automatically create the alert to expire at some point in time. The last option here is very auspicious, and I want to draw your attention to it, which is the send message only if alerts results change option. This option is on by default, and what it does is when we run the alert rules, we're going to go and evaluate the condition against the current data. If the result has not changed, we won't send you a message. So you won't get spammed. Now, if you really, really want to know every single time what the data was again, you just uncheck this thing and then we'll send it every single time we run the alert based on the schedule you had. But by default, we think we want people will want not to do that. Fantastic. Last thing, we get an email address here, so I can go email at example.com. Now, you can also provide multiple email addresses here. So I put in a distribution group. So this allows me some limited features around the ability to create alerts, not only for myself, but also for a small group of people, like, for example, a manager for their direct employees. Now, this is important to note that this is not the kind of capability that an IT organization would need to really send proactive alerts to all of their people, right? And that's really not the intended design, because we're really intending here for information workers to have a tool that lets them be more productive. Of course, the last thing is we get a little description. Let's go. So we'll just put in a little description, and this allows me to remember what it was that I wanted to do with this alert. So I can create a little note to self, or maybe for other people I can put in a little action. You should go do this when you get this alert. Now when I go ahead and save that, what we do is we save that alert into the report server and into a database. Later we can go and run it. So now I've just shown you how to create alerts through the alert designer. Let's go take a look how we manage alerts. There are two management scenarios. The first one is the information worker managing alerts for themselves. So let's go into the drop-down menu on the actual report item. We're going to hit Manage Data Alerts. This is going to launch the alert alert manager. The alert manager will show you all of the alerts that I've created for myself. So you'll see that I have a number of alerts created, and I say my first alert, that was the first one we created, and here's the my demo alert that we also created. You'll see that they're alerted. We'll also see status information on the other items. So now let's just go do something very straightforward here. I'm just going to right-click one of these guys and I'm going to run it. It's going to take a second or two, but we'll get the we'll wait a second. There we go. So my first alert, you see that it just last alert ran successfully. Fantastic. So now I know that it ran. I'll show you the email message it generated in a second. The second scenario is around the site administrator for the alerts, managing those alerts. So we're just going to come in here into site settings in the reporting services hive. I got to see the alerts. Now this managed alerts experience provides you the ability to see all of the users who've created alerts and be able to manage them. So if, for example, if there's a failure, you're able to go see what it is. Now, we provide a more constrained set of options around this. For example, we only allow you to be able to delete these things. And this aligns with the same experience that SharePoint Alerts provides. So I think we'll just go ahead and delete that one, and that particular one's gone. Now, the reason for this is that we think that most information workers are going to be managing their own alerts, and the amount of management of alerts at a higher level is going to be quite small. Fantastic. So now I've just shown you how to manage alerts for both the information worker as well as the site admin within the SharePoint deployment. Now, lastly, I wanted to show you receiving alerts. So let's go take a look at this. Whoops, that's not the right one. Here we go. So now let's take a look at these alerts. Now, on this particular demo, I don't have an Exchange server set up to send me an actual email through my email client, but I do have it set out here, and you'll notice that it's right about the right time. It's actually Friday the 27th of January at 8:46. Let's go ahead and open this up. Now, when I open this up, what you'll see is the alert message that we receive. Alerts in our V1 provide the ability to be sent by email with a fixed format. So this is the email format. What you'll see is that, first off, you'll see the title of the alert that we had here. We have the execution time. We also have the system account here, which is on behalf of. So if someone's sending you alerts and you don't know who they are, you can always go here. If the email address is configured in SharePoint Profile, you'll be able to click on it. Here's the little description that I provided. Now, this next piece is very important because it actually provides you the alert results. These are the rows from the report that actually matched your condition. So you're able to see that it's George who has overdue tasks and a reason why. So now as a project manager, I'm able to know instantly where my team is and who's falling behind and who might need some help, which is a really useful thing to have. Next, we have some links to go to project tracking, to the actual report, and also we have the exact rules that were used to create this alert based off of that report. If you had report parameters, they would actually show up here also. Fantastic. So we just saw receiving alerts. Let's hop back into the slides now and wrap up this first part of our presentation. Great. So within the demo, we saw designing alerts using Alert Designer, managing alerts using Alert Manager, and receiving alerts using email. So now let's summarize. So really when we talk about self-service alerting, there's a number of user benefits that we need to be aware of, right? So data alerts allow information workers to get alerts exactly on the data that they see in the reports. Now, we also provide the ability for report authors to control which data is available in that alert for alerts. Now, I'm not going to talk about that in this session, but if you stick with me for part 3, you're going to get to see that in a little bit. And lastly, we allow alerts to be created on any of the existing reports that you've already invested in. So all the operational reports you've created in BIDS or Report Builder 3 will be able to be used with this feature right out of the box. And we're able to provide, a very intuitive set of alert rules, extremely easy scheduling, and the alert data that's relevant shows up in the alert message. And that really cuts down on the amount of data an information worker has to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Now, at the same time, there's benefits of self-service alerting to IT. So alerts are managed at the site level, and that really reduces the burden on the IT pro, right? Alerts have fine-grained authorization. I didn't talk about this. I'm going to talk about it in detail in part 2. But we allow fine-grained authorization, so you can really control who can and cannot create alerts and on which site that is, and who can manage alerts. And the last one is around, IT visibility and control of user-defined alerts. And we're going to talk about that more in part 3, where we provide the visibility of which alerts have run, what reports they ran on, and you can then track which reports are the most popular ones and how to optimize your environment. Wonderful. So thanks for sticking with me. This is the conclusion, essentially, of the first part. We introduced self-service alerting. There's 2 more parts. We're going to be talking more about the feature set, talking about the architecture, how it actually works, how the IT admin is affected by alerts, and then some of the background material of how we actually get the data out of the report and what you need to know to correctly design the alert. And lastly, we should say that self-service alerting is really about enabling information workers to be proactive and responsive to the data changes that are important to them. It really helps you have that safety net and deal with the information overload that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And it allows you to get in and get out and very quickly create alerts that are specific to the job function that you have, and that allows you to be more productive. So now today you can start working with SQL Server 2012 RC0 as of the recording, and maybe by the time you watch this, SQL Server 2012 will already be available for download and you'll be able to play with the final version. Lastly, my blog is here in the slide deck, so you'll be able to access to find more information about me and post questions if you'd like. So blogs.msdn.com/LUKASZP. Thanks very much, and I hope to see you in part 2 and part 3.